Good morning. My name is Madan Sundararaju. I'm from Capgemini's media entertainment practice.
Good morning. That's allowed. Hi, I'm Kyle Strickland. I'm SVP of Business Product and Operations at Versant.
Okay, so we hear so much about the personalization in our life, but if you think about it, when is the last time you watched a sports or a concert or something like that and genuinely felt that it was just made for you? Not for the rooms, not for the demos, just for you. That's the feeling. That's what we are here to talk about.
Yeah. And I don't think that's accidental. I think a lot of companies in a lot of ways and a lot of businesses are trying to figure out ways to help monetize and enable things outside the traditional broadcast model. And so we're really kind of focusing on how, from a technology perspective, we support them in doing that.
Yeah, so let me start with maybe a sports story. It's kind of easy to relate to. Let's assume there is a basketball game. In the last 2 minutes, the game is tied. That's exactly the moment every broadcaster would live for, the unscripted drama at best, right? So at that point of time, what if instead of the fan, simply watching it, gets an opportunity to look at the coach reaction in the bench cam and listen to the player's mic unfiltered,
Yeah.
and they engage with other participants and get into a betting and win a digital badge or something like that. So in this scenario, what happened is they stayed longer than they anticipated, and the next morning, they open the app, they share the content with them. So if you really think about it, the content is the same, the experience has changed. Okay. It's just not the sports. If I look at, say, news, every now and then there is breaking news, there is a market update. Instead of once again just watching the news, if the viewer is able to navigate,
Yep.
that's where I think the experience gets better. That navigation creates an engagement, and every engagement creates an opportunity for the business outcome. Okay. We call it as this flywheel. It has four components in it. One is the immersive viewing, and the personal relevance, then interaction, and finally sharing. So the immersive viewing, it creates more time with you, and the personalized relevance creates more trust, and the interaction gets you the first party data, which we all look for. And the fourth one is when they share, it creates new audiences. This type of this experience flip, it not only creates a better experience, it funds your next decade of the things which you want to invest on. So Kyle, I think you guys are in the middle of some of it. You may want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. What I would say there is coming up with that business goal and that vision. That's the easy part. The hard part is actually executing that vision and how do you actually implement that new content types, that new audience reach, that new monetization, revenue stream, etc. The gap of that really kind of comes down between the technology and the systems to be able to execute on that vision. Um, and so when we talk about transformations, it's really about how do we support the business in all of these fast, rapid change and monetization models that they are trying to get as quickly as possible. Uh, for us, specifically at Versant, we inherited a ecosystem from NBC Universal that really supported the traditional broadcast model really, really well. But it did not support the future state of monetization. We inherited a heavily fragmented ecosystem, disconnected systems, siloed data. We didn't have AI in place. We didn't have supply chains in place to deliver podcasts, which is a whole new revenue stream for us, to be able to meet the scale to create these new contacts, these new sports experiences and sports clips, etc. And so we really kind of focus on the fact that we didn't have a consistent data foundation. So our initial goal was really to focus on closing those gaps. How do we make interconnected systems? How do we consolidate our data? And using that, without the data, you wouldn't be able to drive the personalization. You wouldn't be able to drive the content creation. And more importantly, which is how probably a lot of us are kind of working, is enable AI. Because without a solid data foundation, AI is not going to be able to reach the capabilities that you want it to be. So for example, if you don't have a centralized rights repository across all of your content, across your entire portfolio, AI is not going to be able to recommend new creative ways to monetize your library because it doesn't know what you have access to. Someone else has to manually go in and look up those rights and come up with those concepts and actually really kind of drive that. And with limited amount of resources, that takes a lot of time to be able to do. So before you can even talk about monetization, you actually really kind of have to fix the foundation first across your supply chain. Now, we are in a unique position because we're not upgrading one app. We're not upgrading one part of the business. We're upgrading all of it, all reimagining the entire content supply chain, all the way from upstream of how contracts are written, how rights are handled, how programming teams now programming all of their content types across traditional broadcasts, traditional TVE, now podcasts, single live events, etc., all the way down through how sports production is operating, how the digital teams are operating, all the way down to the consumer experience. And because of that, then we're able to really kind of imagine an architecture that's highly modular, centralized data that's standard across the board, and more importantly, enable AI where the user is in their specific application, right? So what does that really kind of enable? Like what that enables from a programming perspective is they have full visibility into the rights. So they're able to say, ask the agents and ask the questions, which content have I not used in the last 6 months, but I'll lose the rights to in the next 3 months. Now let's marry that up with all the analytics, which had the highest ratings across the board. So I can start to monetize that. It allows the marketing teams to automatically create content that's platform specific, viewer specific in the various formats, the vertical videos versus horizontal videos. It allows the sports digital teams to create those highlights at scale with limited amount of resources and people to be able to generate that, get that out across the board. Distribution teams are able to go make deals now that are like lighting up new fast channels, new broadcast channels, new avenue streams. Podcasts, for example, which is a big thing for us now, our content supply chain did not support that. So that was a manual process. Us now reimagining all of that allows programming teams to go schedule your podcasts based on the rights that you now have for it, be able to automatically create those podcasts, stripping out audio out of the video segments, going through the exact same supply chain that all of your broadcast content is going through. And there's a lot of synergies and a lot of productivity from that perspective.
So, Kyle, one question actually, which kind of if it's obvious enough that experience is the new content, it's just not the surrounding thing.
Yeah.
What prevents most of the organizations? I know you guys have kind of made a lot of inroads into that. Generally speaking, from your perspective, what's the bottleneck? Is it the systems and the infrastructure of so to speak, the previous generation is the
Yeah.
bottleneck? Okay, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, for us, we inherited probably systems that were 20 years old. 20, 30 years, our program scheduling was 20 years old. Our finance system's 20 years old. Our broadcast supply chain's 20 years old. So it's inheriting 20th century technology and trying to move it at a pace that we are operating from a 21st perspective, and it's not able to do it. Trying to inject AI into things built 30 years ago is very difficult, if not impossible. So you don't want to layer the new technology to help accelerate these new monetization streams on top of that legacy infrastructure. You actually have to reimagine the entire foundation. And if you get that all the way in from beginning to end, it allows you to move at such a higher speed.
Absolutely. In terms of your journey, is there any specific? I know you touched upon all the right ingredients of the journey.
Yeah.
Is there an advice on the starting point and maybe a little bit of help for someone who is starting the journey since you are living through that?
Yeah. Again, like I said, I think we're in a unique position where we have that opportunity to reimagine everything. Most companies can't do that. So it's really kind of focusing on those critical aspects. Again, it's where your major gaps in your supply chain. So like for us, it was major gaps from a rights perspective, knowing what we had rights and available to be able to do. It was also around content metadata. We inherited content that we didn't have a lot of descriptive metadata to. You don't know what you have, then it takes news days to find their content that they need for a new breaking news story. It takes sports a very long time to be able to do that. We have content in our library we don't know about. I use a good example. We were supporting the red carpets for like the Grammys. And we were trying to find Lady Gaga in the 2012 Grammys. And that took us manual time to go find that content. If you wanted to find out what shoes Anne Hathaway wore at the Oscars, that took us hours to go and find and actually scope through the shoe cam, which is a real thing, by the way. Another monetization aspect of it. So we needed to close that data gap first before we did anything else.
Okay. Um, any other thoughts from the transformation perspective?
Yeah, I think again, once you transform and you start to build a scalable, modular, AI empowered, data focused supply chain, it allows the business just to move faster. They can move faster, they can program at scale, they can reach new audiences that they've never been able to reach. And the technology is not a hindrance or slowing down that business vision and that vision goal. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so, as a summary, the way I see that is the fan is not just watching the sports, living through the experience.
Mm.
And if you are a viewer, once again, you are just not viewing the news, you are actually navigating through the news, and the sponsor is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I would also say, once again, as a closing comment, uh, experience is the new currency, period. Absolutely. Okay. And transformation is the mint when they both move together,
Yeah.
which is the experience and the transformation. When they move together, the audience will live in it. I think the last important comment is when they live in it, they pay to stay in it. I think that's the moment everybody wants to capture. And good luck with your journey. You guys have done a phenomenal job, coming out of a large legacy organization, including those legacy systems, and trying to take on this experience angle. Like I said, right, when you get somebody to live in it, they'll pay to stay in it.
Sure.
Thanks for your time today, Kyle.
Yeah. No problem. Cool. Thank you.